Base aim activated. The ship is on fire! The situation is under control.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to Warships Blitz with Terry. There is a new Tier 10 Premium out there, so I figured I'll take a look, because you'll probably all be somewhat interested to see what this ship's all about. And this is the Puerto Rico, a American Tier 10 cruiser, although the word cruiser here is to be taken somewhat with a grain of salt, because technically this thing would have been an Alaska class. Well, if you ask the Americans, it's a large cruiser. If you ask everybody else, it's a bloody battle cruiser, because that's what it is. So the idea of building something between cruisers and battleships first came up when the Germans introduced the Deutschland class. And like pretty much half the naval development around the world at the time was based on, oh my god, the Germans have built a thing, and we need to counter the thing. But nothing really came of it until, rumor had it that the Japanese were building a thing, like a large cruiser. And then everybody went, oh my god, we need to build a thing to counter the thing. So a cruiser killer idea again came up. And the Alaskas actually were a bit weird, because they were, first of all, way too late, because by the time that the Alaska and her sister, I think the Guam was these were the only two that were built. By the time these were built, well, the things they were supposed to be killing, like Japanese cruisers, weren't there anymore. So everybody went, oh, oops, bollocks. And they repurposed them as carrier escorts and shore bombardment machinery. But this is a ship. These were ships of compromise. So they were really, really big, but they had actually really poor armor, and were comparable AA capabilities to something like a Baltimore class heavy cruiser, and not the same firepower as battleships. So the legitimate question came up: well, why did we need these things in the first place? And rumor has it that Roosevelt himself said that he wanted them, and that there was a bit of a political thing behind the whole endeavor. But the Puerto Rico as she stands here has never been built. There was, however, a design early on that called for 12 300mm main guns, and this never got actually built. So if we compare her to the Alaska, we've got the Alaska here. The Alaska is a 250 meter or 246 meter by 27 meter ship. The Puerto Rico is a 268 by 28 meter ship. Let's compare with the Missouri, so Iowa class. That's 270 by 32. So this is an Iowa-sized cruiser. This thing is absolutely massive. Well, the Alaska was actually still, well, somewhat smaller. I mean, it was still huge by standards, but this thing is really massive. So what do we have? We have 47,000 hit points and cruiser armor. Because if you look at, and I happen to have the Buffalo around here, which is, well, pretty similar to the Des Moines. The difference is not that big if you compare. She does get more hit points, but then again, it's almost a battleship in size. But she doesn't get the same amount of hit points that you would get on a Tier 10 battleship. This thing has cruiser armor, so this is kind of the worst of all worlds, I'd say. The maneuverability and size of a battleship, the armor of a cruiser. Yeah. So what does it look? What else do we get? She is reasonably quick with 32 knots. I think 33 odd with the consumables. And compared to the Alaska, this is very similar. She is less maneuverable than the Alaska on account of, well, being bigger. The guns are the exact same guns that we find on the Alaska. And these 305s, the Mark 8s, are not actually bad. They were relatively advanced and complex at the time. But because of the shells they were firing, they actually had equal or better penetration than the 356mm guns you would find on the New Mexico. So these are, you could say, kind of New Mexico guns, but lots of them. Where the Alaska had 9, this thing has 12. So we get an additional turret. She gets an array of secondaries, which is just kind of standard. And again, she gets a little bit more than the Alaska on account of being bigger. But if we compare her to a, let's say, the Buffalo, it's not all that different. You get 2 secondaries more, but you're the size of an Iowa class battleship. No auto secondaries. The AA is not bad, although again, get into something like a Des Moines, and the AA is a whole different story, right? So because she only gets 1.8 kilometer range on the small caliber, she does get better AA than the Alaska by a significant margin. And the surface detection isn't completely unworkable. Just like the Alaska, after the buff, actually has a workable surface detection and is no longer being able to detect it from orbit. Right. So we got a, I don't even know what to call that. We call it a large cruiser, a really, really large one. You get 2 elite bonuses, either reload or firing range. I've been going with range here because one thing that the ship cannot do is take damage because, again, cruiser armor pretty much. But the with this bonus, the 305s have a range of 14 kilometers, which isn't terrible. Now, these 305 mils have a relatively narrow window of effective fire, and it's round about somewhere between 8 and 10 kilometers. Beyond 10 kilometers, you'll start bouncing quite a bit, and it'll get harder to actually hit anything. I mean, unlike the Alaska, who has 9 guns, this thing has 12, so you are throwing a lot more lead down range. But the dispersion isn't grand, and at extreme ranges, it can get a little tricky to hit even battleships of the size of the Yamato. So 8 to 10 kilometers is the ideal range. If you get any closer against battleships, you'll be bouncing again, because you'll be starting to hit the belt more often because of the dispersion. So that there is an ideal range at which she is very effective, and you can relatively reliably citadel even Yamatos, or especially things like Iowas or lighter armored battleships. You can actually do a reasonable amount of damage, and they have a 13-second reload, which is not historically accurate, because the 305s on the Alaska class did a maximum of 3 salvos per minute. So that's more like a 20-second reload. But yeah, you couldn't have that in-game. So they reload quickly, they have a good caliber, and they are hitting hard. Now, if you are hitting cruisers, which is what this thing was designed to do, then that's a different story. Now, the problem is, obviously, you are in a battleship-sized target, and everybody will start farming you because you're a giant damage piñata for battleships. So getting shots at cruisers at close to mid-range is a relatively rare occasion. But if you do, you will do very, very decent amounts of damage. The same with aircraft carriers. Yeah. So, ship skills. We do get the precise aiming 2, and that should already give you a hint that this ship is meant to be played at extreme ranges. We do get an AA defense alert 1, which gives us a little bit more AA, but she still, in a tier 10 battle against the tier 10 carrier, she cannot stand on her own. And because of the relatively low torpedo damage reduction, for example, and because this thing absolutely gets set on fire like no tomorrow. I'm not sure what this is, because on paper, fire and flooding resistance is just a normal value that you'd get around. This thing burns insanely easily. I get insta fire all the time, even by destroyers shooting HE at me. And don't even get me started on dive bombers, because a target that size is difficult to miss, and you'll be on permafires all the time in this ship. She burns worse than a German battleship, and that says something. And we do get 2 radars, which is cute, but well, given that these are 3 or 5 mils with a 13-second reload time, there isn't all that much you can do against destroyers in this ship. I mean, you can, if you get close enough. Where the radar is really, really useful is if you're doing things like rushing a Smolensk. But then again, you'll probably be on triple permafire if you're rushing a Smolensk, so it's not something you can do very often. But if you can, it is extremely satisfying. So how have I put her equipment-wise? I have played around with a bunch of different configurations. Main battery mod 3, because again, the dispersion is map, and there's not really anything else that you could use. I mean, you could go for a secondary one and give yourself a bit more AA range and a bit more utility in that regard. And that might be something you want. I'm not sure it makes a huge amount of difference, to be honest, because at long ranges the dispersion is a bit well, you have to be lucky. Now, in the third slot, you want the steering gear mod. In the second slot, I have been playing with mostly with the steering gear mod 1, but the amount of fires that this ship takes is just so frustrating that I switched over to the deck protection mod, which has somewhat alleviated this problem. Maybe it's because this thing is so large and is so easy to hit, but I don't know. It has a lot of superstructure sitting on top of it. But yeah, this is what I've kind of ended up with, which gives us a turn time of 10.9, and I think it's like 10, just above 10 with the other module. So it's not a huge. It's 1 second less or something. It's not a huge amount of difference. So that was that. I have put a level 10 commander in here. So you do want underwater protection. You could go with battlefield support for an additional defensive AA. But honestly, if you're getting under concentrated carrier attack, you're not living long enough to use all 3 anyway. I do have the artillery maintenance. You do want air defense expert. Again, you've got 3 precise aims. So I took the survivalist because she bleeds hit points very, very quickly. Things like Yamatos will just eat this thing for breakfast if they get shots out. I have got the generalist in here, the extinguisher, because again, fires. You don't want marksman, and I've got demo expert and honor seeker. APCS would be a good choice in this ship, because again, if you are catching targets in range and battleships, things like French battleships, you can and will do reasonable amounts of damage to these things. Very reasonable amounts of damage. The problem, again, is that you have to actually manage not to get killed in the process. Camouflage. The historical camo gives us hit points, range, AA range, and torpedo damage reduction. All good things, because dodging torpedoes, given that she doesn't have a hydro and has the maneuverability of a battleship, isn't easy. And you can defend yourself against destroyers reasonably well in this thing if they decide to rush you. But this is tier 10, right? So she must everywhere, darings left, right, and center. So you do run into your fair share of torpedoes in this thing. But yeah, we're going to use the red alert camo, and lastly we'll have a quick look at the battle honors. So for 90,000 points of damage cost, you will get 6 whatever this is titanium. This is surprisingly difficult. I think my average damage in this ship is somewhere around 45,000, which is honestly abysmal for a tier 10 cruiser, in my opinion. But yeah, the biggest problem I have with this ship is that it's too big and it's too easy to hit and damage. And if you stay, and it is too single use, right? So in a Des Moines, right, I can play many roles. I can accompany and give AA support to a destroyer. I can play defensively around islands. I can burn down battleships. I can take down planes. Right? In this thing, not so much. The only thing that you want to do. She plays actually more like a light cruiser. The one thing you want to do is hang back and shoot at things from extreme range, really, because that's really the only thing. And then you get into epicenter. And I am getting into epicenter a lot these days. And she's bloody useless in epicenter, really, unless the enemy team completely potatoes. But you can't even maintain a position in the outer ring because you're too big, you're too easy to be focused down by enemy battleships. It takes one good salvo from a Yamato and you lose half your health, right? So very specific ship, I would say. All right, but enough talk. Let's take a look at a game. And here we are in a tier 10 battle on Typhoon's Eye in domination mode, which is about as good as it gets in terms of map choice. It's a carrier game, so enemy midway is here. Yamato, Alsace, Smolensk, Donskoy, and double Yugomo. So let's go. Yeah, what do you do in a battle like this? Well, you're no good really against the Yugomos because if you get close enough that you can reliably hit them, they're going to torpedo you. And if you are staying at range, well, you can't really hit them. So our primary targets are cruisers and battleships and probably AA support for whatever sits next to us. So we're going to head into A-Cup. And our only destroyer on our team is coming along as well, so I'm just going to stay close to that one in case the carrier gets any funny ideas. She is no Des Moines in terms of AA though, or Worcester, so more really like one of the battleships you would say. A bit better than that, but not the same level. Okay, let's head carefully into A-Cup. You see, if you're in a destroyer, this is the exact same. This is the exact right thing. Stick with your AA cruiser in the beginning, but this is round about how far we want to go forward. Because if we expose ourselves any more than this, then we're gonna start getting hit by enemy battleships as soon as we open fire and get spotted. So daring is going scouting. There are some planes coming in. I think they're on the return leg, but so I'm just gonna try and shoot some down here. To extend the time. There's the Donskoy. Now that is exactly the kind of target that you want to shoot at. Enemy cruiser. And yeah, that hurts. So that was the third gone of the Donskoy, just with one salvo. So that wasn't bad. Even though we only hit half of our shells. Okay, there's Yugomo. Alright, so even with the precise aiming at a maneuvering cruiser at long range, it's also difficult actually to hit. Now I am going to shoot at the Yugomo because I don't really have angles at the Donskoy and I really want that Yugomo dead. And you do occasionally get full pens. So I'm just going to have to dodge the obvious Yugomo torps coming my way. And the Donskoy's been legging it, so we only have a Yugomo to shoot at here. And yeah, she does handle pretty much like an Iowa class. So not terrible, but really just like a battleship. It looks like we're going to take in one torp here because I can't back behind the island here. But that's alright, that's not that bad. Alright, and the carrier, of course, double fire. Insta double fire, damage controlling it. Okay, Yugomo should be dead, well done daring. And we will just be shooting some planes down, but it's not huge amounts of planes, right? So, there come the torpedoes. And I got lucky here not to be flooded, because he has been waiting the 10 seconds with a double fire. But there's the Donskoy again, so shots out at the Donskoy. And how does it look like? We've lost one cruiser, they've lost one destroyer. Otherwise it looks very even, but it looks like our other flank is massively falling at this point. So there's one of the Yugomos, so I'm going to switch over to the HE. If he's got torpedoes away, I'm just going to stick here and they're going to pass by me harmlessly because I don't think he had angles to hit me from where he was sailing. But I might have to do something about the other flank. So the Donskoy is gonna be dead, right? There's a Yamato and the Daring together. Now I would love to give you 2 air cover, but I think I'll be better hanging out on this flank and seeing that we're not collapsing over here. Now I've got the HE loaded for the Yugomo, but Yugomo looked like he was gonna rush me. Can you kill that thing, please? Kill that Donskoy, would you? Thank you. Oh, it's an Izumo, it's not a Yama. Okay, so I'm just gonna unload on the Alsace while I'm at it and back to the armor piercing because Yugomo doesn't seem to be wanting to come out. So yeah, the high explosive does nothing, right? You do more damage in high explosive with a Worcester, I suspect. So you do need the armor piercing against battleships. Okay, we've got some air scout and I can't see the Yugomo. I do have the radar if I need it. Oh, priority target detected, Smolensk. Fire out with the forward turrets. Oh, he's right there. Okay, crap. Reverse. Guns out. Switch to high explosive. Now you do have a quicker reload than in a battleship. So if I was in an Iowa, I'd be very much in trouble right now. But Yugomo pokes out. And my 13-second reload is already over. So I'm not sure what your plan was right here, but you're dead. Okay, and these torps are going to hit the island. Yep, okay, one's getting through, so I'm going to take 1 Yugomo torp. That's fine. The other thing, while we are reversing away from these battleships, because yeah, Yama is not something you want to be dealing with at all in this thing. The other thing worth mentioning is that these turrets are relatively fragile, so they're pretty easy to shoot off. So losing 1 turret happens reasonably frequently. Okay, and it's the Smolensk. Hey, we've set the Smolensk on fire. 1 hit, 1 fire. How does it feel, buddy, to be set on fire? But yeah, we are controlling 3 caps, and the rest of our team has looped around, and they're chasing down the carrier. So we probably want to just make sure that the Smolensk dies, and I'm blind firing here. So, but he's coming out. Okay, he's coming out. Shots out. Is that gonna be far enough? Oh, the midway takes him out. Man, I wanted to kill that Smolensk so bad. Anyway, so now we are dealing with a Yamato at 11 kilometer and an Alsace, and they're both shooting at us, and that's gonna hurt because I'm in a full turn. Yep, and there goes our forward turret, and that was half our health. That was half the ship gone. So that was like I don't know what that was, like 20,000, 15,000 points of damage easily in that Yama salvo. But so now we need to kite away. So what you want to do, and then there you go, you see, 8 kilometers, 8 to 10 kilometers, you can citadel a Yamato back, which isn't going to do the same amount of damage that the Yamato does to you, but you are still in a cruiser. So carrier is running wisely away, and I'm just going to try and kite from these 2 and prevent them from focusing down the carrier. Okay, precise aim up. They are sitting behind a smoke screen that something has laid over there, but so for a second they couldn't see me. But now they can, so now they're going to shoot at me. So full speed ahead, and you want to kite away. But this is kind of the ideal range where you can still dodge some incoming fire from the battleships, and you can actually get reasonably reliable full penetrations in return instead of just doing 500 points of damage with each shot that hits. So the Alsace being the softer target, focusing my fire on her, and there you see that. 9 kilometer, it's a very good range. You can do very nice penetrations. Now, of course, return fire. And ouch, and we've lost another turret again. See, this is what I'm talking about, right? It can't tank. And we've done 76,000 points of damage, which is one of my best games, to be honest, in this ship. And the Daring takes the MVP. Well done. So let's see where we ended up in the team. But yeah, these are the kind of things you can expect. So you were in a battleship-sized cruiser with cruiser armor and battleship maneuverability and reasonably rapid-firing guns. So I'm not a huge fan personally. I mean, maybe there are people who like to play this ship in divisions, and maybe that works a lot better when you are playing in such a way that you can rely on your team to do the important work for you, like capping. This is not a ship you go cap with. You die. It's as easy as that. This is really a ship that does one thing and one thing well, and that is staying at long range and shooting at stuff, or deleting cruisers. if you can get into close range engagement with cruisers, which you mostly can't. So if you're trying to fire at a booster and he's running away from you, he's going to burn you to the ground before you make even a scratch into it. Well, I'm sure there are people out there who like this ship, the same way that there are people out there who like the Alaska. Personally, not versatile enough. And too many severe disadvantages, the lack of armor, and the maneuverability, and the insane amounts of fires that you're taking in the ship. So, that's that thing. At least one thing positive, we don't need to go through some weird shipyard grind to watch it being constructed for lots of money. You can just spend your money on a loot crate and maybe you get one of them. That's it for me today. Thanks everybody, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.